Okay. This video is for Glenda. Glenda, this is in reference to the questions that you sent me via email um on May the 8th. Sorry it's taken so long for me to get back to you, but the end of the semester is pretty busy and just started a new part-time job for the summer and been doing a lot of training for that. So the first question that you had in the email is the word cite needs to be double space. My comment was the works cited needs to be double spaced. And what that means is that you have everything single spaced here, even though you have a lot of extra space between the entries. You have the rest of your paper single spaced, but just like the rest of your paper, your works cited also needs to be double spaced. So what I'm going to do here is select that and click on double space. And I'm also going to take these extra spaces out that you have between, whoops, these entries. You have also some other spacing issues. So I'm just going to make sure we've selected add and remove space after paragraph. So that's what this should look like if it was correct in MLA format. And since you have more than one source here, it needs to be works cited. If you only had one source listed here, then it could be just works cited, but you have more than one, so works is plural. Okay. So the second question that you had in your email said, when I have two authors, how do I add it in my paragraph? So I'm not really sure what that question means because it's so ungrammatical. Um, but what I'm thinking that you're mentioning is how do you incorporate the names of the authors into your sentence? So let's look at this first source you have here. Your authors are Caitlin Dickerson and Kirk Semple. So up here in this paragraph that goes from the bottom of page 2 to the top of page 3, you say Caitlin Dickerson is a national immigration reporter and Kirk. So you don't have Kirk's last name here, and you're not supposed to call an author by their first name. In academic writing, that is considered to be very informal, so you would need to have his last name here. I think it was Stemple. Let me just check it here. Yeah, Semple. Okay, so I put an extra T in there. Who is a correspondent covering Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean, stated that. Now, one of the comments that I did make that you did hear is that you have one quote from that source, and then directly after that, you have another quote from this source. And what I was saying in my comments is that if you're going to have um, quotes from a source, if these two things are in different parts of the paragraph, what you need to do is not stop the quote, then restart the quote. What you need to do is have an ellipse, and an ellipse is three periods, like that. So what the ellipse is showing is that you have the beginning of this quote, you were quoting something from this article, and then there was stuff that happened after this sentence that you didn't feel like you wanted to include in your quote, and then you have the second sentence from that source, but it's all from the same source. It's from this article that you have down here. US deported thousands amid COVID-19 outbreak. Some proved to be sick. So if you are just leaving the middle part of a quote out, you use an ellipse. Also, because you have your sources listed inside the sentence, you don't need an in-text citation for this sentence, in which case the ending punctuation should be inside the quotation marks and not outside the quotation marks. So let's check to see your other thing here. Okay, so you have, quote, unfortunately, these immigrants face a very tough choice during this crisis, risk exposure or risk homelessness. And then you say, said Louise McCarthy, president of the Community Clinic Association of Los Angeles. Now, we don't have a source down here in the article that mentions this person, Louise McCarthy. So, what you need to have here is QTD in Jordan, okay? Because I'm assuming that Jordan wrote the article that you're quoting from, and Jordan interviewed Louise McCarthy, okay? So while you're naming Louise McCarthy and there's no Louise McCarthy down here, I know that if I put QTD in Jordan, meaning quoted in Jordan, and we do have Jordan down here, then I know where you got that quote from, okay? Now, if this second quote that happens directly after is from Jordan themselves, like Jordan said this in their article, then you can leave it that way. But if this is a continuation of the quote from Louise McCarthy, you would also need to have QTD in Jordan to indicate that it wasn't Jordan that said this, it was someone else, in this case, Louise McCarthy. Okay. So going up here, we've got another instance, and you did it mostly right here. You name the author here. You say who she is, a national immigration correspondent. You did need to have the ending punctuation inside the quotation marks instead of outside. And you really shouldn't have this hyperlink in your article. So if you have a hyperlink, you can highlight it, and then you can right-click and select Remove Hyperlink, and that'll take that hyperlink out of the quote. Okay. It should be double-spaced. Okay, so let's see some of these other questions that you have here. How can I shrink a very long sentences that I am using from a resources? Well, you actually don't have a long quote in this paper. Something that I talked about in class was something called block indentation of elongated quotes, but you only do that when you have a quote, a direct quote in your paper that's going to take up 4 or more lines of your paper. So if you have this quote, which is kind of starting at the end of this sentence, and if it extended 1, 2, 3, 4, if extended to the rest of this paragraph, if it was that long, then you would block indent the quote. And if I was going to do that, what I would do is select the 2, 3, 4. Okay, I would select the rest of this, and then I would come up here to, this is decrease indent and this is increase indent. And I would just do that, and that is block indentation. And then I would have my citation at the end. I wouldn't have any quotation marks around the block indented source, because when you block indent, you're showing your audience that this is a direct quote. So you wouldn't need the quotation marks. You would still need the citation. That would still be required. But you wouldn't need to have the quotation marks. So if that's what you're asking about, then that's how you would deal with that. If you have something else that you're referring to, maybe you can email me back and correct what it is that I'm not getting right on. Then you say, can you explain me in more detail what was the points you had made in my last essay? I did not understand some of your points. So going over the comments that I made, I said my response on this will be similar to others I have provided excuse me, throughout the semester, but I appreciate you working hard to improve. Several sentence level errors, but quality content and demonstration of critical thinking skills. I'm fairly certain you understand what that means, but if you don't, let me know. COVID-19's impact on the illegal immigrant population. So that's me noting that that was your topic. Excuse me. Very timely topic. I said that what that means is that, obviously this is something that is happening right now, so it was a good selection of topic. I said you needed to have 3 sources minimum for this paper. That was in the assignment description. But in this paper, you only had 2 sources, so you were graded down on the fact that you did not have a minimum of 3 sources. The 2 sources you have are good, but you needed a minimum of 3. Need to double space works cited page like the rest of your paper. I showed you how to do that. Do not name an author by their first name only. Use both names or last name. I showed you about that. If you are leaving part of the middle of a quote out, use an ellipse, 3 periods. I showed you that. Do not end the quote and then begin one right away. That is something else that I showed you in this feedback so far. Submitted late but will not penalize. So those were all the comments that I made about paper 4. I hope that that has addressed some of the concerns that you had in your email. As far as what you can do about your grammar mistakes, I did send you a separate email about things that you could do to work on that. Now, if you did not receive that email, let me know and I can resend it because I still have it, and I'm more than happy to resend that to you. But if you have any other questions, please let me know.